Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Brothers Take, and welcome to this bonus segment. You're joined by me, Kris, and my brother, Eric.
Hello.
And today, well, because of the recent release of the Dead Space Remake, it only makes sense to talk about the Callisto Protocol.
Of course.
Of course. Well, look, this is a game that a lot of people were comparing even before they were out. They were going to release so close together. We finally had something that was going to be sort of a spiritual successor and like a return to form for kind of space sci-fi horror in Callisto Protocol. And of course, it being the same makers essentially of the original Dead Space. But then there was Dead Space Remake coming at the same time. But it was like, whoa, resurgence anyway. So I imagine there'll be a lot of people doing comparison videos and discussions and things, and we'll talk about Dead Space Remake in another podcast episode. But for now, we're taking this opportunity. Both myself and Eric have played Callisto Protocol, so this is going to be our review of the Callisto Protocol, and there will be spoilers. The game has kind of been out a while now, so just be warned that there will be spoilers. It's not a particularly long game either, so it's not like you have to wait like 2 months before you can start talking spoilers on it. Pretty short game.
Yeah.
And it released to there was a lot of hype around it, but it was released to very mixed reviews.
Yes.
So Eric, I'd love to know your thoughts on it, and this is the final spoiler warning because we're allowed to talk about whatever we want from now on.
Oh, whatever we want. Okay, let's talk about taxes.
Sure. Yeah. They're scarier.
Yeah. They're terrifying.
Yes.
I remember. No, actually, we won't get into that discussion. So Callisto Protocol. I mean, graphically and lighting. I mean, we're just starting off on a positive note.
Okay, so do you want to break it into pros and cons list?
Might as well. I think that's most fair
because it is a mixed game. I think there's no point in just saying it's all brilliant or it's all terrible.
That's because there is stuff about it where you're a bit like, okay, it's a bit like, all right, like. So pro for me would be the lighting and the graphics, right?
I'm right with you.
They're amazing. They're awesome. They're phenomenal. I mean, even just facial expressions. And I've never seen a man sweat as much as this main character. The game starts and the guy's already sweating. I was like, is his ship a sauna? Like,
what's happening here?
But having that level of detail and just the facial expressions, and I think Josh Duhamel, whatever way you pronounce his name.
Yes, I know what you mean. I don't know how you pronounce it though. Same thing.
I think he did a really good job. I think he did a good performance.
Yeah,
a really good character. And on replay, you can kind of, because I know that you were questioning something with the story.
Yeah.
About like, did he just forget or what's going on there? Like, with the fact that his, spoiler warning, his ship was carrying the bioweapon to Europa. That then the outbreak happened. Then he was bringing it back to the prison, and then it happened in the prison. I think it's a mixture of both. I think the yoke scrambled his brain that he somewhat forgot.
All right, but initially he did know that he was doing it.
I think he knew they weren't bringing medical supplies, but even when you go back to the ship with Karen Fukuhara, I'm just going to say the actor's name. Can't remember the character's name. The actor's name.
Danny is the character's name.
Danny, yes. So you go back there, and he is very just like, that's it. That's all it is. Like, he opens it and then kind of closes it very quickly. Like, he's been very sort of brushing it off as well. So he is very.
So he knows really.
He does know, and it's kind of putting it back into the back of his head. I think he was just in denial that he did the Europa thing.
Yeah.
Or that it was what caused all this.
Yeah. Well, I'm right with you on the pros. The audio design, the graphics, the atmosphere in the game that they created throughout, the facial animations, generally voice capture and voice performances I thought were solid pretty much throughout. So yeah, those are all I think. Like, the game looks amazing.
Yes.
There's no denying that.
No, it looks, It's like we're finally at the PS5 era of video games, because was it PS5 exclusive? But not, I don't mean PS5. Was it this gen exclusive?
I'm not sure. I think so though. I think it was PS5 and Xbox Series X and PC. Let us know if that's not true, but I don't think it was like PS4 and Xbox One, for example,
because it doesn't look it anyway. Because you can use those when those games will look it, but yeah, it didn't look it.
But then I hear what you're saying, but then in some ways it doesn't feel next gen because there is a lot of those still. So maybe it is on the other consoles. Again, I'm not sure. There's a lot of crawling through like little tight spaces.
Well, like
which used to be used as a way of loading
the next area.
Yes. So, like in this case, maybe it's just that they want you to feel like tight and claustrophobic and that kind of stuff. But they do it a lot. It's particularly early in the game. That happens a lot.
Yes.
So,
is that to do by any chance with the Xbox?
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. Okay. Other than that, I would say that would be the only reason would be to make you feel close and claustrophobic and like, oh god, what's at the other end of this tight space, or is something going to get me in this vent or something like that?
Yes, yeah.
And I think as well, just kind of added to the map exploring. That's like if you saw two crates that were somewhat in some sort of space that you knew, I could shimmy through there, and that could be like a secret area to get some things. I don't know if it was specifically to make it like a loading thing.
Yeah, well, it'd be strange if it was, because it's not like the game isn't massive.
No.
It's not like in God of War, it makes sense. Well, that's also that has to work on last gen and stuff, but like the areas are huge.
It is huge.
The maps are massive, and there's multiple maps because there's multiple realms, and so it makes sense. If this game is working on the same level, it's like, well, then it's all very linear. It's corridors. It really shouldn't be an issue, I don't think. But
no.
But then again, maybe it is actually just a design choice in terms of trying to garner a feeling more than trying to load something. But any other pros before you want to jump into cons?
Pros. I mean, I always like it. It's just a little pro, just kind of jumping into my head, is when you're upgrading a weapon or something and it physically changes. I always like that because I'm just like,
I think that's cool.
I can visually see the progression. It's not just you're telling me there's a progression. I can visually see it.
Yep.
So I like that. But a con with the weapons, just going to say one now.
Okay.
Is weapon swapping is a pain in the fucking arse.
The weapon swapping is awful.
Not just awful. It's awful.
It's really annoying.
It's like when playing that and doing the first main boss fight.
Yeah.
Which there's only 2, actually, I think, for the whole 3, probably for the whole game.
4, 5. Well, there's one of them, and it turns out there's multiples of them. So you end up fighting.
Yeah, but I'm only like that one. There's really only 2 that's like, this is a boss fight. One on the actual...
Yeah, the transit. The 2-head
transit
guy.
thing. The 2-head guy on the transit, and then the 2-head guy down in the colony, right?
And
then the guy at the very end. So I'd say only about 3 bosses, really, for the whole game. But when I was down in the colony, I was trying to fucking swap weapon. And I was like, how the hell do I... Because at this point, this is when you have loads of weapons. You pretty much have all your weapons now at this point. And I was like, how do I do this? And what the fuck? And then I was like, fucking getting hit. And I was like, fuck off. And like, it was so awkward because you have to press right on the D-pad. And then you have to scroll to the weapon. And then he has to take that weapon off and attach the other weapon. And then I was just like, oh my God. Why not just hotkey this stuff like Resident Evil or something?
Just hotkey it. Absolutely. Yeah. Like it made no sense to do.
There's no reason for 5 weapons.
Again, I think it's a case of like creating that jank. I think that jankiness is on purpose. I'm trying to remember back to like the thing that makes Resident Evil 1, like the PS1 Resident Evil 1, scary to play is that the controls everyone calls them tank controls. It's just so fucking awful to like navigate and play that every time you're in a fight, you get stressed because of the fucking controls. And I'm wondering, they've made this like super shiny game, but they went, but let's make it work like a PS1 game.
Maybe,
so that you're just fucking stressed. Before we continue on the cons that another pro I wanted to throw out there was the UI is awesome, and I wish I mean, Dead Space kind of did it first, but I do wish that more games would find interesting ways of integrating all the information you need into the game. I think the UI of just having the life bar on the back is awesome. You are missing some form of waypoint. So sometimes like you're not sure if you're going the right way or if you're, because sometimes you might think you're exploring and you're like, great, I'll go this way first. I don't want to go the main way. And it turns out it was the main way and you go, shit, now I can't really go back. Or
yeah, you can't go back.
So if you'd known, like if you had again something similar to like what they did in Dead Space, where you do the blue line thing, you know, and you're like, okay, so that's the right way. Grand. Well, then I'm gonna go this way. But you'd always know how to come back to and know how to push on to where you need to go. So that's all. But like in general, I think the UI is fucking awesome. I really like it. Yeah.
Yes, I think always integrating the UI into the game is such a like genius way. Like it's not even just integrated into just the game; it's integrated into the story.
Yeah,
which is always such a good idea.
But here's where I don't like it, which we'll go back to the cons now.
Okay.
When you open audio logs,
yes,
to listen to, and it's up on the screen and it's still in gameplay. Like you could get attacked while you're listening to that.
Yes,
if something came along.
That's no different than Dead Space.
I don't like that. This should be like, and I was reminded a lot of Arkham Asylum while playing the game, Batman Arkham Asylum. Like, because pretty much the whole game is that section in Arkham Asylum where the crazies get out and and they run at you. Like it's that the whole game is that basically. Yes. And then if you can get it right, which I didn't for a long time, you basically do what Batman does, which is you counter, put.
You don't dodge and then start whacking.
Whack. So I think it should also work like Arkham Asylum, where when you get an audio tape and if you want to listen to it, it just the screen comes up and there's like. Do you remember like when you're listening to this, so that you can actually sit down and listen to it and take in the story?
I know. Yeah, I know the audio.
I can't remember half of those audio tapes.
It's fine. It's good.
But like that is part of the storytelling, right?
Yeah, but that's like, I mean, how often do you read those books in fucking Skyrim? Take a shot.
All the time. But okay, so combat.
Yeah.
You didn't mention it as a pro.
Oh, well, I mean,
that wasn't. How do you feel about the combat? Because this is the one that everyone was like, this is really
actually,
tore people.
Okay. I didn't really mention it as a pro because I wasn't like, oh my God, this is the best gameplay ever.
Yeah.
But I'm also not mentioning it as a con.
You just mixed on it?
It's not mixed. It just, it just worked for the game. It did what they were wanting to do, and I suppose I got a grasp of what I had to do, and I just went along with it. So I wasn't like, yes, this is amazing, because I had some things that were part of gameplay that didn't work for me, such as weapon swapping.
Yeah.
And then, but then I wasn't like, this is terrible, the worst thing ever, because to me it was like, well, you just dodge, start whacking. Oh, now I have a gun, right? Bang, 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 bang. Other dead. So I wasn't hating it because I didn't really find the game that hard, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think everyone else was saying this was rock hard. It was the hardest thing ever. And
now we must take note of the fact that we didn't play it day one. There were patches by time we played it.
Sorry, yes, yeah, that's fair.
Just in case someone's like, no, fuck you, it was fucking, like, my game was fucking stuttering and like, nothing was working. And it's like, we don't know what it was like day one. We didn't play it day one.
Yeah, that's true. We played it Christmas Day.
Like maybe a week and a half after its release, or maybe 2 weeks after its release, so.
Yeah, because there was, once it was installed for me, but for both of us, there was then the update afterwards. So I was like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose in that regard, they somewhat fixed it then.
Sure.
Because we don't know what day one was like. We don't know. Because I know, who was it you were telling me? Someone was playing it and then he just kind of quit because he died. He kind of just rage quit and went, fuck the shit.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know who
was, someone anyway. Someone was streaming the game and they died or something. And they was like, I just turned it off. Turned the stream. Got off the game.
Yeah. It was, I think it was Maximilian Dude.
Yeah, I was thinking.
And he plays games on the hardest difficulties. He plays pretty hardcore games, like so. Yeah, and he just turned on something else instead and went like, "Fuck this."
So it must have been pretty bad for day one.
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, I found the gameplay like fine, like serviceable. I didn't love it.
No,
I at no point it wasn't like when you play something like Final Fantasy VII Remake and you're just like, oh, give me more battles because I love this. You know, I didn't get that feel, or God of War Ragnarok, or like plenty of games where you're like, they nailed the combat.
Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. But I certainly had moments where like when it went well for me, or when like I really timed those smacks and then the shooting the tentacles at the same time and everything. Like I had moments where I was like, oh, that felt good and that felt visceral and it felt grimy and dirty. But one thing that it did for me, and I think this speaks to the game for me, or my thoughts towards the game, because the action, and I know why they made it more melee focused, at least in the first, I'd say 2/3 of the game, and then the final third, it kind of turns more into like a shooter.
Yeah,
or the focus kind of changes. But like for those first 2/3 of the game, and the reason they made it melee focused was because there was like some of the QA tests for the original Dead Space, people were saying, oh, I wish I had like a melee attack. And like, that's when they added in the like hitting, but that wasn't really like, that's only to get something away from you. Right.
Yeah.
And so you're saying when making this game is like, yeah, something that always stuck with me is that people did like when they were doing the testing that they were saying, oh, I wish I had like a melee attack. So they made this one then obviously very melee focused.
And now people are like, no, I wish I could shoot more.
Yeah. But what it does though is that the enemy, because the enemy is getting close to you and you're going to fight the enemy close up, I wasn't afraid of them. Now, fear is subjective. So I'm not going to say this game is not scary, which I've heard many people say. I think there's plenty of people who would find this game scary. I am not a very brave person when it comes to horror games. I did not find this game scary. I found it stressful and tense. I think that, and they achieved that. And if that's all they wanted to achieve, great. But I was and like, I more had like a sense of like dreading putting it on, not because I was like, oh fuck, like that game is so scary, but more so I was like, I just don't feel relaxed playing it. Like, so it was kind of like, I remember like the first time I played The Last of Us, and every encounter, there was such tension and stress. Genuine, like I remember, like I've said it before, I did not enjoy playing The Last of Us, which I think is one of the greatest games ever made. Right? I didn't enjoy it, but I loved the story, and it was worth getting through the encounters. With Callisto, you have that kind of tension and that just getting by gameplay, that kind of survival gameplay. But there's absolutely nothing driving me to like. It took me quite a while to finish it because I'd play like maybe half an hour or 40 minutes and go, yeah, I want to play something else now.
That's fair. I get. Yeah, I get.
I just didn't have that drive of like, I think it was lacking in the story. It's a bare bones story.
Well, it's a story where you can kind of by the start of it go, oh, I know what's happening. I know what this is about. I know who the villain is. I know what happened.
And all those things are true.
Yeah. And then like towards the end of it, they're like, oh, twist. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know if you earned that twist. I'm not really like, ooh, that was a twisty twist right there. But I was a bit like when you find out that he pretty much, the main character caused the incident on Europa where everyone died.
Yeah.
I wasn't really like, oh, wow, what? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Because I was not on Europa. I
was
don't
just
really
gonna
know
say,
Europa.
I feel like a better start to this game would be you play as the sister on Europa when the outbreak happens, and you die.
Yeah. That would have been good.
So you now have an understanding of what actually happened on Europa, how horrible it was. And then you're playing as the guy who did that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Might have a little bit like, oh, that fucker.
I also feel like they missed an opportunity with like they have a prison Right? They could have had loads of interesting letters and stories where you're reading about what other people did to get in here, what other people did to try get out of here. Like you could tell so many prisons are, great for telling stories about characters and decisions they made, bad decisions, horrible decisions. Some people could be terrible people. Maybe someone's in there and they didn't do it and they're still trying to like appeal for their innocence. The main character, I feel like maybe should have been a prison transfer or something so that we don't know what he did. And part of the mystery is like, well, what did he do? What did he do to get into prison? Is he a bad guy? Like, am I playing as a bad guy or is he
and also
a good guy?
What happened for there to be a prison transfer as well? But I think if he was already a prisoner, that'd be good. Yeah, because it causes that mystery, right? And at least it makes sense. Even if the ship did crash because the Outer Way attacked, it would make a lot of sense that they do go, right, but you're going to prison. We're taking you with you. Because that part doesn't make sense when the warden asks him, no, bring him to put him in prison.
No, I don't get it at all.
Yeah. The warden needs them too. Why?
Yeah.
Like I actually thought throughout the whole thing there was something special about Jacob Lee, the main character.
So did I. Yeah, I thought that's where it was going.
That is like the whole thing was essentially to make him unlock some innate like something. Like maybe he was already infected, but he's immune or something like that. The whole thing was just to make him be able to like become one with it, sort of. Now I think it kind of was. Just he wasn't infected, but the whole thing was about trying to find.
Well, it was right. It was
the best human.
They're replicating the incident from the mine 70 something years ago, so that they could try find an alpha, and then they could use that alpha to adapt human beings to outer space.
Yes.
So it's basically about trying to achieve metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of that is cool, and some of the ideas and concepts are cool, but the execution isn't there. It's like, so the acting is good, the animations are good, the writing I think is really lacking.
Yes, it's fine.
It's fine. It's perfectly fine. It's not bad, but it's not good.
You get the story, but at no point are you like, wow, I am mind blown by that. That was such a good emotional moment, or that twist was so good. There was no real. I think the only moment within the story where I was like, holy fuck, was when I was falling off the tower. I was like, this is awesome. Right. This is an awesome moment. There's no dialogue there. You're just fucking falling.
But that's the other thing. Like there is great moments in the game. There really is. And that is one of them. And like, I really enjoyed being down in the colony and doing the whole stealth section with basically this game's version of the clickers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I enjoyed all that. I found that bit kind of scary because I was like, right, if I fuck up, I'm going to be swarmed here. So I need to slowly get through and time killing each one, and don't kill them too close together because it actually alerts the other ones. And
it actually doesn't.
I had a moment where it did.
I did it?
I killed one right beside one and it immediately started attacking me.
Oh, maybe there does have to be like a couple of like centimeters or like a couple of like 12 inches away from each other.
Maybe I got unlucky with the way it was facing or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
But so yeah, I thought that whole section was the most horror section of the game.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And I really enjoyed that. I did not like the final boss at all, which you helped me with, and actually you killed because I was fuck this. I hated the design. I thought it looked terrible. And then other enemies suddenly come along and you're like, well, where the fuck did they come out of? Like, and why now? Yeah, I didn't like that at all. Because I thought the guy looked kind of cool when he was just this alpha human thing, and I was like, bring it on. Like, this can be a difficult fight in itself. When he turned into that, I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous.
This part's ridiculous. The rest is fine.
It just looked like a blob.
Yes, no, it very much when that happened, I went, oh, okay, horror boss. Gotcha. Like, it just, I think when it was him, and I think horror games kind of somewhat need to do that more, is have at the end, you fight a more human enemy. I think.
Okay.
I think you can have the big monster right? You can have that big monster maybe halfway through it or 3/4 the way through it. You're like, holy fuck, right? But I think for the end, you need that personal ending. You need that personal adversary that you take on.
And
it literally could just be a quick time event. You're just pressing a button and you're, beating them with a crowbar or something. I don't know, like whatever it is. But I just think because usually in horrors, it is a more human person that's caused the most damage to the hero, emotionally or physically, or be the actual main adversary. So I think horror games need to start doing that more rather than just having, here's your big boss at the end. Here's a big monster.
Yeah.
I inject this little tiny seed into my neck and then, and loads of eyeballs.
Eyeballs everywhere.
Yeah, it's just like, so for me, it was just that. I was like, here's the big, last boss. Okay, I'll shoot him now.
Yeah.
I like the little fingers at the end of his fingers. I was like, that's gross.
It is gross.
That's an unnecessary grossness right there.
Part of me hope or wishes that, like, when the robots take you at the start and there's kind of the robot security around the place. Part of me's like, oh man, what if they had like just separated themselves from the virus bio-human thing that's kind of obvious, and did like robots gone evil in a prison in space, hunting and killing people, and maybe capturing bodies and amalgamating them into like fucking cyborg zombies or something. It's like, we wouldn't be comparing it to Dead Space as much if that was what it was.
True. That'd be some nasty body horror stuff.
Yeah, and like go for like a HAL type villain, I'm afraid I can't do that, like that would kind of give it its own identity a bit, and the Callisto Protocol sounds a bit more techie than what this turned out to be. I was just thinking about that as I was playing it. I was going, these enemies are very run of the mill. They're just zombies again. It's just zombies. Like,
yeah, because they're even when they're mutating, they all mutate into the same thing.
Yeah, and I have to say, I was quite disappointed. I thought Two Head was pretty cool. It was frustrating as fuck, but I thought it was a pretty cool design. But I thought it was like that was like a freak incident. You know what I mean? Like, because there's mutations and things. Like, so someone happened to turn into that, and I thought, well, what other kind of mutations are there? When it turned out there was multiples of that, I was like, so that's a type?
Yeah,
I thought it was just like a freak incident.
I thought the same too, and I thought, I like you. It's like, this is an awesome design. And I thought at this point, are we going to get more of these? Because this was the first significant boss fight in the game. So I thought, okay, from here now we're going to get boss fights, and maybe they're all going to be different. And then then there was like 3 others after that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It just there was a lack of opportunity in creating very interesting looking creatures.
Yeah, and I thought as well with it was hard to look and go, okay, but how did those things evolve into that? Much like, again, it's impossible not to compare to Dead Space, but if you look at Dead Space, like the babies are babies, like,
yep,
and then the people are the people. Then you have those dog ones. And that's just literally someone got cleaved in half, their spine came dangling out, and then just flesh morphed around it. So it's just a person running under 2 hands, and then they've turned their spine into a tail. Yeah, so it's like with all of those enemies, you can almost look and see how they evolved or growed into that. Now, I think there's some others like bombs and stuff where you're a bit like, huh? How did that happen? Yeah. And then I think the big monsters are literally just humans started to meld together. Their flesh just started to mold together. But then with this stuff, you're a bit like, huh? How did you mutate into that?
Yeah. It's a bit loose with the rules, but
a bit loose with the rules.
Before we finish up then, and guys, if you ever want to hear more of our thoughts on Callisto Protocol, let us know. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can jump into the comments to ask questions or share your own thoughts on what your experience of the game was. Or if you're listening to this on audio platforms, you can touch base social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take, again, to give your take. But before we finish up, they're hinting heavily, obviously, at a sequel at the end.
They are.
Now we'll see if they get to make that sequel, like, depending on how this all went. I'm not sure they met their sales that they wanted to make.
I don't think they did.
But would you, if they made a sequel, would you be interested in checking it out?
Yes, I would be interested, because from most sequels of video games, usually they improve because whatever people give out about, they'll go, okay, well, we need to improve that. So the weapon swapping, they'll improve upon that, or maybe like to kind of make a much more interesting story. So they'll make a more interesting story and stuff like that. And enemies could be more interesting. Maybe they'll make dodging easier or whatnot. Usually they improve on things like gameplay, graphics, performances.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be interested. I mean, I don't know if they'll get to, but I'm even interested in the DLC they're planning on releasing.
Yeah.
Just to see what it is that they're working on to expand on this world.
Yeah. So I suppose I'm interested based on like the foundation that they've set. I think there's stuff you can do here. You could definitely build on this and make it a more interesting world.
Like the masked organization. It's like
yeah, like stuff like that. Like there's a small bit of intrigue. Again, I wish they were like hinted at a little bit more throughout the game. Like it just felt like they were holding too many things back because it feels like they planned a sequel and they were holding back too much.
Yes,
and not a good idea.
Yes, I think games do this more than movies do. Stop thinking you're going to have a sequel.
Yeah. Like it's great if you have like I think make a full idea and then go, and then after you have that kind of fully done, as in script wise and everything, ask yourself, if I was to do a sequel now to what I just wrote, what would it be?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't I put small Easter eggs of that? You know, like, okay, Arkham Asylum. Yeah. You find a secret room in the asylum. You might not even find it, but if you do, and you see a whole map for Arkham City.
Yes.
You know? So they teased it, but Arkham Asylum in itself is a complete story.
And yeah, again, like you said, you could miss that. So, like, I mean, they do hint at the commonality. I think that's what they're called, the group, but they're two secret rooms.
Yeah.
One, I think in the prison, one down in the mines or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Like, I mean, but if you had to kill Cole, if you had to expose what was happening on Callisto, at least then that's your story. It's complete. If there's no sequel, it's fine because you completed the story.
Yeah.
But if they want to do a sequel, they could end up doing that. They expose what happened on Callisto. They expose the commonality. And actually everyone goes, that's a brilliant idea. And so it becomes this weird dystopian concept of human society. They're all like, yes, let us evolve each other. And that's how you can have, it's all over a space station or it's all over a world.
Yeah.
Because everyone openly accepts this idea.
Yes, you can always build on it. But I would be interested in checking out a sequel. But I also would not be buying it day one. I would actually be wanting to see what the reviews are. I'd be wanting to see what did they improve on, what is the consensus. I do think they could improve on these things. I think they could make a better game. I think the talent is there, but I just think they made some wrong decisions this time around.
Yeah,
and I don't think they fleshed out the story enough.
No,
but those are just our thoughts. Again, didn't hate the game, didn't love the game. Thought the game was okay.
Yeah,
want to hear from you guys. So if you guys, again, have been watching YouTube, jump down in the comments, share your thoughts on the Callisto Protocol. You can go full spoilers here because it is a spoiler cast. Or if you guys listen to us on audio platforms, you can touch base social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Brothers Take. Again, to give your take on Callisto Protocol, please give us a like or subscribe to us or follow us or review us wherever it is you're checking us out. And we'll be back to talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.